All right, we have waded into this topic a couple times over the last couple weeks, and I admittedly, every time we've talked about it, I like the conversation because it can go in a lot of different directions, and I think it says a lot about where the Diamondbacks could go in the next week with the trade deadline, where they plan to go in the next couple months this season, and where they potentially could go in the next year or two, really. But I've never taken it seriously, Wolf, that they were at all in the running to get Shohei Ohtani. And I will say this from the outset. Gambo shot this down immediately when this story came out. So they probably still aren't in the running to get Shohei Ohtani. But according to John Morosi yesterday, he said the Diamondbacks did at least inquire about him with the LA Angels. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense. You should do that. Even that's further than I ever thought that this would get. Even asking about Shohei Ohtani.
Really?
Yeah, it is. I don't look at the Diamond. I don't look at them as a small market team. But in the past, if you're telling me you're not willing to spend a ton of money on this character or this character, Shohei Ohtani is going to cost more than any character ever, probably. And he's going to cost that much in a few months.
Yeah, no, you're right about that, Luke. Yet at the same time, if Mike Hazen did not pick up the phone and call about Shohei Ohtani and what it would take to actually acquire a Shohei Ohtani, he's not doing his job.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe I should have just assumed that something like this would come up. But the John Morosi tweet from yesterday says, sources, Orioles D-backs among teams inquiring with the Angels about Shohei Ohtani's trade availability. Both clubs' interest has been described as due diligence. Both teams have the young talent base conducive to making a trade. It's that last sentence that's the most important to me. Both teams, and the Orioles are one of the top teams in baseball in terms of young talent as well. It really is like the Orioles, the Reds, as we just saw firsthand, and the Diamondbacks, I would say, or maybe there's one or two other teams. But in terms of high-end, either young talent that's breaking in this year or is on the verge of maybe breaking in within the next 12 months, the fact that the Diamondbacks and Orioles are teams that could make a trade for Ohtani, whether it would be the smart move or not, if he can't sign in big picture, it probably isn't. Just the fact that they're in that position, and it's not like Corbin Carroll's name's coming up, that puts you in a pretty good spot going forward.
Yeah, I listen, I know what you're saying, Luke, I really do, but in terms of Shohei Ohtani, once again, I just don't think it's a situation where the Diamondbacks are really qualified, where the Diamondbacks actually are going to make some type of move for Shohei Ohtani. They just picked up the phone and did their due diligence. This is what Mike Hazen has got to do. This is what every general manager has got to do. You've got one of the elite players walking around the baseball universe right now that is up for trade. Yeah, you know what? You can have Shohei Ohtani. You can have him. You just got to meet the price. Well, what is the price right now? This is something that general managers will do all the time, even though they know they have no interest whatsoever or no ability, I think is a better way of saying it, whatsoever in actually pulling off the trade for a Shohei Ohtani. Because probably you're going to have to pay him at some point in time. And right now, you don't have the money to do that.
It just would not be smart to make a trade for Shohei Ohtani that's going to cost you more than any other player out there if you're just renting him. So then you would have to know you could sign him. All indications have been he wants to stay on the West Coast. Does Phoenix count as the West Coast? I mean, it's more West than a lot of the teams, but to me, this isn't even about Ohtani. To me, this is about if you're even just gonna kick the tires, as John Morosi said they are, whether they were ever actually going to get him or not. If you're willing to kick the tires on Shohei Ohtani, doesn't it mean that you're willing to go a little bit deeper on pretty much any other name we've heard out there?
Oh yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point there as well. The question I have for the Diamondbacks, and oh by the way, why don't you give me this? Mike Hazen has been a general manager for the Boston Red Sox and the Arizona Diamondbacks for nearly a decade. Wolf is a talk show host. Having said this. And there you have it right there. Okay, just honestly, it just seems ridiculous right now. I'm going to tell Mike Hazen what to do, yet at the same time right now with the trade deadline, it seems as though the Diamondbacks came into this season and they were hyper-focused on their development of young players. Would you agree with that, Luke?
Mm-hmm.
They were really focused on their development of young players. And who knows, boy, they might even be a 500 team. Luke, they might be a 500 team. They might actually have a shot at a wild card. Wouldn't it be great? Remember this, if in September, wouldn't it be great if the Diamondbacks were actually in this thing? They actually had a shot. Maybe there were 3-4 games out of that final wild card spot. But wouldn't that be great? You know, yeah, it would be great. There's no doubt about that. Yet at the same time, you've got to look at it in its reality, Basinonians. Coming into this season, they thought they were going to be competitive. They thought they were going to be good. Who knows what could happen? They were going to give it a little go here. And all of a sudden, it seemed like they were winning. And they were 10 games over 500.
They were 16 games above 500.
And then they were 12 games over 500. And then there were 16 games over 500. What? Wow! You know, I think we all, instead of focusing on their young talent developing, suddenly it became a situation where, okay, who are you going to go get for the postseason? Who are you going to go get for the postseason right now?
But they were 16 games above 500 17 games ago, 3 weeks ago, with an all-star break mixed in there. You still have to go for it this year. Not Ohtani. Ohtani is like, we're trying to win the World Series. We're all in. Yeah. This is it. Although, again,
so define going for it, Luke. What do you mean by that?
I'm willing to trade multiple prospects that aren't Jordan Lawler or Drew Jones to go for it this year. If you look around the National League, who do you really fear in the National League this season? Big picture, probably the Dodgers. I don't know that I do this year. And they're winning, and they're going to win that division, or this division. But look at their rotation. It's shaky this year. It's a lot of rookies. It's Tony Gonsolin, who hasn't pitched well. Like, the Dodgers are winning because they're the Dodgers and they win, and they're going to probably go out and make some ridiculous trade in the next week. But in general, this is a year where you can make a run in the National League that's easier on paper right now than it was last year, and that it probably will be next year. You'll probably be better next year, but so will the Dodgers, and so will the Mets, and the Braves aren't going to be any worse. Maybe the Cardinals will be back in it. Like, right now, it's just there's the Braves.
Yeah,
so you still got to go for it.
You know, define go for it once again. I'm not moving any of my primary pieces from the farm. I'm not doing that. They came into this season, once again, totally with a different paradigm and a different goal with this organization. They were trying to build something that was going to be sustainable over time. Something sustainable like what we're seeing with a lot of these other teams, the Minnesota Twins, the Tampa Bay Rays. Build something sustainable from an organizational perspective. Yeah, your payroll is ridiculous. Think about this. The Tampa Bay Rays have a payroll of $67 million. Think how good they are. And think of their payroll.
But you don't have to break the bank to go get a Lucas Giolito or somebody like that. Like, I can make trades without giving, as long as I don't have to give up Lawler, Drew Jones.
Yeah.
I don't want to give up Davison, De Los Santos, or Ivan Melendez if I can help it, because those guys both can play positions that you need, and I would prefer to keep Brandon Pfaadt even though he hasn't gotten going yet. But there's a million prospects in the system, and I guarantee you I can get a team that wants a Dominic Fletcher or somebody at a position where I'm already overflowing, and I can get somebody ideally that I can keep too.
No, that's great. If you can get somebody of value, I got no problem. Always trying to improve your team. No problem doing that. But if you're talking about moving anything substantial from the farm right now, I think, again, just look at what you're seeing. What's happening right now?
They're getting dangerously close back to that 500 mark, too, that you were talking about. Like, hey, going into the season, I hope they can go 81-81 or maybe 82-80. They were 16 games above 500. Now they're 7 games above 500. I should mention, too, since we're talking baseball, we're going to talk to Gonzo next hour. We're going to talk to Paul Goldschmidt in the final hour. I don't know if he's going to apologize for what he did to the Diamondbacks in the ninth inning last night, but we're going to talk to him.
Goldie, you're so rude.